So I've picked three things, and main reason the three I picked was they're the most common issues when I was over in Iraq. Um, the extractor, mainly the extractor spring. We'll talk about that. Got the firing pin, and then also gas tube. So the extractor, if not working properly, you're going to get jams. One thing, I got my older model right here, extractor off a different rifle. So this is kind of like the one we had in Iraq. This spring, especially during sandstorms, it would get a lot of sand in it. Could also get a lot of corrosion, or not corrosion, but uh, carbon buildup on it, and it just would start not extracting the rounds properly. So that's one thing to pay attention to. You can see this Panther Arms one. It has a O-ring that's covering it. It gives it a little bit of, protection from elements getting in there. But still, that O-ring, if it gets hard, you're going to have issues with it too, so you need to keep it moist and oiled. And those two components, they are two separate pieces, the extractor and the spring, but yet they're still so interconnected. You can't have one without the other, but that's a lot of items. So it's just one of those that it is crucial to make sure the spring is not overstretched, or else it's not going to have its elasticity, and then also to make sure that it is not fouled up with any kind of debris. Going over to the firing pin, it's another one common issue we had over in Iraq. So on this particular Panther Arms, one dimension you need to pay attention to is on this one, it needs to be 0.33 of an inch right here. The overall length is going to be 3.278 inches. And then pay attention to the tip right here, that it is supposed to be 0.07 from the shoulder up. And this is easy to get fouled up just because you get carbon buildup on it, or even sand like it happened over in Iraq, and it just wouldn't function right just to come out and penetrate and hit the primer. So this tip, over probably a few thousand rounds, it's going to start to get worn, and it's going to flatten and not be as protruding when it goes through the extractors mechanism, locking and extractor mechanism, so it won't engage in that primer, and so it's something to pay attention to. Also, I've seen people where they're taking the bolt apart, they're standing up when they do it, and of course it just falls and hits right on the ground and flattens that out a little bit, and then it doesn't function correctly. So with the gas tube is a very integral part of the overall mechanism. It's what causes the bolt carrier group to function and load the next round into place, ejecting the old one. And the lengths can change just depending on what length of rifle you're working with. It can range anywhere from a short 12 inches all the way up to a 15-inch gas tube. Good thing to pay attention to is the OD is supposed to be 0.170 inches, and the ID inside diameter is supposed to be 0.12 inches. And making sure that it's free of carbon buildup, just because this is something, it's easy to foul up, and if you don't have a good clean gas tube, you're going to run the risk of it not operating correctly, especially with the small openings it has. It's like anything else, the smaller it is, the most likely it's going to get fouled. So with that being said, paying attention to making sure there's no dents in it, because that will obstruct the gas operation. And just when you're installing it, making sure it's lined up correctly, because the timing issue on the top when it's coming in right here, you just want to make sure that there's nothing impeding it, causing to make sure it doesn't have any wiggle in terms of slanted to one side, slanted to the other, because that could cause some binding issues. So those were the three components: the extractor, the firing pin, the gas tube.